Hello everyone, my name is Bev Witta. I'm a BC chicken grower and I'm also a coordinator of one of the 3 Poultry in Motion educational mini barns that we have in the province. Some years ago, the BC Growers Association and the BC Broiler Hatching Egg Association joined together to develop a program using these mini barns as a way to bring education to the consumer. So we're a regular attraction at all the fairs, community events, and of course we visit a lot of schools too. So I invite you to take a barn tour with me, so come along. Now in this pen here we have Rusty the rooster and 3 hens, Henny, Penny and Jenny, and they live together as a group of breeders just as they would on the farm. There are 2 main varieties of meat birds in Canada, Cobb and Ross. These ones are Ross fast feather birds. The Cobb and Ross are very similar in appearance. You'll see that red on top of their head, that's called a comb. The biggest one is on the rooster, of course, and the red hanging down under their head is called a wattle. All chickens have combs and wattles, just of different sizes. These ones are very bright red because these chickens are very healthy and they're very young. They're actually 6 months old. Now over here is the feed pan. The feed pans are up off the floor. That's so the chickens can come and conveniently have something to eat. They can't put their feet in the feed pan, so the feed stays clean and uncontaminated. Here's the water line. Now this works very, very well for the chickens because you know what? Chickens cannot swallow. So they walk up here, put their beak on that little pin, and they get all the fresh water that they would like. So they get the water in their mouth and it goes down into their body by gravity. For food, chickens don't have any teeth. They have a powerful little tongue and lots of saliva in their mouth. So they pick up the food with their beak, gets in their mouth, they use this strong little tongue and the saliva working the food. Down it slides down the esophagus and it works its way over to the gizzard. Now we digest our food in our stomachs. Chickens digest their food in their gizzard. The gizzard is an organ about that big. It's very thick and muscular. They must have a bit of grit in their gizzard because it's the muscles on the gizzard and the grit that grinds up the food and that's the digestion process. A hen will be 6 months old before she will start to lay eggs. And it takes about 24 hours for that egg to develop inside her body. And it all happens like this. It's very, very fascinating. In the hen's body is a cluster of teeny tiny little yolks. It's up near the back in the chicken. So a little yolk is released. It starts to travel through the hen's body. As it travels, it gets bigger, up to size, the white forms around it, and then there's the membrane, and then the last thing to develop is the shell. As soon as the shell is around it, there's a message that goes to the hen's brain and it tells her, come on my dear, it's time to get to the nesting box. So here are the nesting boxes. The hen climbs in there, she settles down, she's very quiet, and you know what? The other chickens never bother a hen when she's sitting in her nesting box. So she'll lay her egg, the egg rolls down out of the nesting box into this catch trough here, and that's where it stays, keeping safe and clean. And then the farmer will come into the barn a couple of times a day to gather up the hatching eggs and get them ready to go to the hatchery. At the hatchery, they go into the incubator. That's for 21 days at 35 degrees, a very science-based process and program of hatching eggs in the incubator. On day 21, that chick is ready to get out of the egg. He will use the egg tooth on the side of his beak. He starts pecking a hole. That's called pipping, making that hole bigger and bigger until he can finally just lift up his wings, give a little wiggle, and the shell bursts apart. The chick is hatched. Now, when he first hatches, we don't think that he's very cute because he's kind of wet and gooey. So we call him a green chick. He stays in the hatching room. The warm air in there dries him off and fluffs him up, and they start getting ready to go to the farm. We're going to move on to chapter 2. So while the chicks are at the hatchery getting ready to make their trip to the farm, the farmer's got a job to take care of. As soon as we ship birds out of the barn, we go in the next morning with a skid steer or a small tractor to clean out all the manure and all the sawdust. Then we go in with a backpack blower to blow out all the dust. We follow that with a hot water power washer. We wash all the equipment and we wash the walls, getting the barn spick and span clean. Next comes the fogger that we fill with disinfectant because we want this fog of disinfectant to be circulated around the barn by the fans, and it's all about getting rid of germs. So the disinfectant goes into all the cracks and all around the equipment. A farmer works hard at this part because we all believe that if we keep germs out of the barn, that's the best way to keep our chickens healthy. So we put a lot of time into that one. Next, it's time to bring in some fresh sawdust. Put in the sawdust, put the feed pans down on the floor so the chicks can jump in and out of the feed pans. Put the water line at the right height, perfect for their beaks. We put rows of paper down the barn and load the paper up with feed so that when the chicks come, it's all ready for them. Of course, the barn is heated up right to 32 degrees Celsius. That's the comfort level for new chicks. That's what they have to be at. So the chicks travel to the farm in an environmentally controlled hatchery truck, keeps them in perfect condition, the right temperature, the right amount of humidity and air going through the back of the truck. They come to the farm, we wheel them in, lunch is served. We put the chickens right on top of the feed. They start eating. They notice the shiny water line. They go over and have a drink. And of course, it's warm and cozy and it's perfectly clean. So a farmer will go into his barn 3 or 4 times a day when he's got chicks at this age, and it's all about checking. He's looking to see that they're eating, drinking, sleeping. Some will be playing around, or actually lots will be playing around, and they'll be making their peeping sound. When he sees those 5 things happening, he knows his chicks are off to a good start in this lovely, clean, and warm and cozy environment. So we're going to go on to chapter 3 now. In this barn here, we have the broilers. These broilers are 6 weeks old. We often refer to them as the teenagers. You'll notice that they have lots of feathers on them. They're well covered, so we don't need any supplemental heat in the barn at this age. But we do have to pay a lot of attention to ventilation, taking out the hot, stale air and bringing in fresh air, so it's all controlled by the computer program that the farmer has put into his barn. And even in the summertime when it's very hot outside, the cooling program is fired up and it brings in more fresh air. Some barns have a misting system that lets a moisture in the form of a very fine mist be drawn across the barn. The chickens don't get wet, but it cools the air and keeps the temperature down at comfort level. The newest technology is tunnel ventilation. That's big fans operating, and the air is passed over cooling pipes, and that also cools the air in the barn. So on a hot summer day, it's a treat to have to go in the barn because we know it's going to be very, very comfortable in there. The best for the chickens. The feed pans are off the floor. The water line is at the right spot. And if you look at the picture on the back wall there, you'll see that those chickens have lots of space. The floor is clean and dry. They're very convenient to get to the feed pans and the water lines. There's the fans hanging from the ceiling that circulates the air around them. And then those yellow boxes that are up near the top, that's where all the fresh air comes in, all controlled by the computer. Now, in this day and age, farmers can check into their barn to make sure everything is working right by using their smartphone, the newest technology. Kids often ask, well, how do I tell the boys from the girls? Well, if you look at the chickens, you'll see the ones there, they have a larger and redder comb and wattle. They're the roosters. This one here at the front, where her comb and wattle is very shallow and very pale, that's a hen. It's the quick way to tell them apart. Thank you for touring the mini barn with me. That was great fun. And we'd also like to thank you, the consumer, for your support of our industry. Because you know what? Chicken is the #1 meat in Canada right now. And that's easy to explain why. It's very affordable, it's high in protein, low in fat, and rich in minerals and vitamins. So a little 30-gram serving of chicken with your meal is going to keep you in good health as well. So we look forward to meeting up with you again at the next fair, community event, or at the school near you. Please come on over for a good old-fashioned chicken chat.